You're listening to Arts Alive. I'm Vincent O'Donnell. And listeners who can remember back to March 2020 may remember that we spoke to Stephen Johnson, a journalist and television broadcaster whose first thriller called Tugga's Mob had just been released. And I spoke to him at his home in Auckland, though he is a veteran of Australian television. Well, his second thriller, Boxed, has just been released, again from Destine Press, and he's on the line again from New Zealand on this occasion. Stephen, thanks for speaking to Arts Alive.
Thank you for having me, Vincent, and hello to Australia. I'm looking forward to coming home soon.
Yes, we're letting people in these days, I'm told.
Yes, it's more about getting back here to New Zealand, so they've dropped the restrictions on quarantine and isolation, so I can come and go as I please.
Ah, good. Well, I'll be going over there sometime soon, I sincerely hope, because I haven't been out of the country since I got back from, indeed, speaking to you in Auckland.
Well, I think we both deserve a good trip and chat to a lot of other people.
Well, in Boxed, you have returned to the scene of the first crime. That is the current affairs program Spotlight on the Channel 5 in Melbourne, a Channel 5 of your own creation, of course. And we meet again, the entire crew. Was there any great temptation not to go to these guys? Tugga's Mob works so well.
Actually, during the editing of Tugga's Mob, I was sort of encouraged to develop those characters more because two of the female members of the team, Jo Trescothick, she's the production assistant, and Kim Prescott, the young reporter, they really appealed to readers and to the editor and said, try developing those. And when I was brainstorming the plot for Box, they came to the fore and they just worked so well as characters that I just really kept going with them. In fact, I've written the third book with them as essential characters.
Well, you've essentially set up a circumstance which can be the beginning of almost a dynasty for Channel 5's Spotlight program and its dairy doings.
Well, that's right. And in fact, I quite like that unique aspect that you've got the journalists as amateur detectives. It's a point of difference that too many other thrillers are out there on the market. And I suppose I've continued that with the other works because during lockdown and the pandemic, I've had plenty of time to write, and literally another 3 books have emerged. The third book in that series, and I'm also planning a 4th book, which again will feature the Spotlight crew as the core to it all. So, that uniqueness was what I was looking for.
Well, when you look at television and you see the kinds of dramas that appear quite frequently, the epicenters of the two are a police station or a police operation or a police-like operation, and of course a hospital. And these are really great places because they're places where something different happens every day. But I'm very surprised that no one else has landed on a television newsroom or current affairs program, because that's another place where something different happens every day. Are you pioneering new ground here?
Well, I hope so, and I'm glad that. Well, I want to be the first one there because I think there is a sort of unique. Initially, I was worried because there's been a lot of focus on the media in the last couple of years, fake news, allegations led by Trump and so forth. But the people who've read the story and enjoyed it have really responded to the insights into what happens in the newsrooms. The workings, the thinking, the processes. We're ordinary people like everyone else. We've got foibles, but they've still got the basic tenets of wanting to report facts, to be fair, objective. At the same time, they latch onto a story and they want to see justice done to that story. So I think I'm accurately portraying the news media, which is good and interesting for a lot of people, quite different. In fact, my former news producer at the ABC and then later news director of Channel 7 was reading the current book and said it felt like he was back at work. So that was really sort of encouraging that, yes, I've caught that mood, but at the same time, people who aren't involved with the media were enjoying the story that they were able to sort of tell, that they're fumbling around at times, they're making mistakes, but it's a new perspective on the thriller, and the crimes they're trying to solve.
Yes, well, I must confess that it does make me a little nostalgic for my own years in television, and I agree. I think you capture the dynamic of the newsroom, the current affairs reporters, very, very closely. And I certainly agree that this is something which a lot more folks it would benefit, I think, the quality of news and the quality of our media if people actually understood the limitations and the rivalries that go into the production of news. There was a reader of the Australian newspaper beating it up the other day in print in the paper, lamenting, in fact damning the ABC for failing to report something on the 7 o'clock news that happened at 6:30. If they knew anything about news, the station has got to blow up before, if something happens at 6:30, it can get into the 7 o'clock news.
I know that feeling. In fact, many times when I was producing the news in Australia and here, a major event happens, sort of very late in the day, and you'd be tearing your hair out trying to ensure there's something, because people have come to that expectation that a major event, there will be coverage in the news no matter when it starts or when it's broadcast. And that was incredibly frustrating for me, and possibly sort of spurred me to move out of news into staying in program production, but not that daily grind, because literally quite often stories did break at 5 o'clock. I can remember one very famous story when Mikhail Gorbachev was almost toppled in a coup back in the early 90s, and a statement came out from TASS saying that Gorbachev was stepping aside for very spurious reasons, and that another person was taking over. And I said, that doesn't sound right. This is not the way that things happen there. So I just grabbed a reporter and said, quick, let's get some information, pictures together. This is going to blow up very soon. And literally 5 minutes to 6, news came out. Yes, coup was underway in Moscow, Gorbachev in trouble. We started the news with the story, and were able to put some perspective on it. Not long, but we came up straight away. So there was one occasion where I was very proud to have been able to catch the story very late in the day. But most often it is a time-consuming and demanding process that you do struggle to meet the deadlines with.
And of course, it's often exploited by politicians who drop the story when they know it's not going to make the evening news and hope the heat's gone out of it by the following day.
Oh, exactly. It's at 5:30 on a Friday afternoon or Saturday or Sunday. So
it's called taking out the rubbish, I believe.
Yes, exactly. So I've mentioned that several times during Boxed, when the Hound Liberation Party is under pressure, they're under scrutiny for what has happened with the story. And, they've suddenly been hounded by the media to provide answers. And normally they could control the message, particularly on the weekends when news organisations are short of news, and the lesser stories might get a run because there's just nothing else to fill the half-hour or the 1 hour program. And suddenly the Hound Liberation Party found themselves on the back foot because they were having to answer to a real-life emergency story.
You're listening to Arts Alive, and in case you thought we were going to talk about a thriller, a crime thriller called Box, you're quite correct, but we're going to do it after this track. And our guest is the author of Boxed, Stephen Johnson.